My name is Jessica Miller, I'm 36 years old, and last week was supposed to be one of the proudest moments of my life. I worked my way through night classes for nearly 6 years while raising 3 kids, keeping my marriage afloat, and holding down a job at a local insurance office. It wasn't easy. I can't count how many nights I cried in the bathroom while studying for exams, exhausted but determined not to give up. Last Friday, I finally graduated with my bachelor's degree in business administration. To most people, that might sound ordinary, but to me, it was everything. I dropped out of college at 20 when I got pregnant with my first child, and going back had always felt like an impossible dream. But I did it. I was finally walking across that stage in a black gown, my name being called, a certificate in my hand, proof that all the late nights and sacrifices meant something. But here's the part that stings: not a single member of my family came. Not my husband, Michael. Not my 3 kids, who I thought would be cheering for me in the front row. Not even my parents or my brother, Mark. Every seat I had reserved for them sat empty, like a cruel joke. I found out later why. They'd all gone to a barbecue at Mark's place instead. My own brother's backyard cookout was apparently more important than the moment I'd worked 6 years for. As I stepped off the stage, clutching my diploma with tears in my eyes, my phone buzzed. I thought maybe it was a "congratulations" text, or at least some excuse for why they weren't there. Instead, I saw a message from Michael. "We have to talk. It's urgent." And right above that, 40 missed calls from him. My hands started shaking. My legs felt like they'd give out. I had no idea what could possibly be so urgent that it couldn't wait until after my graduation. I remember standing just outside the auditorium doors, clutching my phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. People were streaming past me, hugging their families, taking pictures, laughing, celebrating. And there I was, standing alone with my diploma in one hand and 40 missed calls staring back at me from my husband's name. For a moment, I didn't want to call him back. A bitter part of me thought, no. He didn't bother showing up for me. Why should I run to him now? But the word "urgent" kept flashing in my mind. Michael wasn't the type to use that word lightly. I finally pressed call. My heart was hammering so hard I could barely hear the first ring. He picked up immediately. "Jessica?" "Finally. Where are you?" His voice was strained, almost frantic. "I just walked out of my graduation ceremony," I said, my tone sharper than I intended. "Where you were supposed to be, by the way." He sighed, and for a second I thought he was about to apologize, but instead he said, "Jess, listen. This isn't about that right now. Something's happened. You need to come home. Right now." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean something's happened? Are the kids okay?" There was a pause. Too long of a pause. Then he finally said, "They're fine. But, look, it's not something I can explain over the phone. Please, just come home. It's serious." That should have calmed me. He said the kids were fine, but his voice told a different story. It was tight, nervous, like he was hiding something. I wanted to scream at him for abandoning me on the most important day of my life, for choosing burgers and beers at my brother's house over watching his wife walk across that stage. But the urgency in his tone scared me more than my anger. I told him I'd be home in 20 minutes. As I walked to my car, diploma still clutched to my chest, I couldn't shake the dread clawing at me. Michael wasn't just being dramatic. Something was really wrong. And deep down, I had this gnawing feeling, whatever he was about to tell me was going to change everything. The drive home felt longer than it should have, even though I live only 20 minutes from campus. My hands were trembling so badly on the steering wheel I had to keep telling myself to breathe. My graduation cap sat on the passenger seat, still with the little tassel dangling, but instead of pride, I just felt this overwhelming knot of dread in my stomach. When I pulled into our driveway, I noticed Michael's truck parked crooked, like he had rushed in. The curtains in our living room were drawn, which was unusual. Michael was the kind of person who liked sunlight pouring into the house. I grabbed my diploma, more out of instinct than anything else, and walked inside. The air felt heavy, the way it does right before a thunderstorm. Michael was sitting at the kitchen table, hunched forward with his head in his hands. When he looked up at me, I almost didn't recognize him. His eyes were bloodshot, his face pale. "What happened?" I demanded, my voice sharp. "What was so urgent that you couldn't even come to my graduation?" He opened his mouth, then closed it, like he was searching for words. "Jess. I don't even know where to start." "Try," I snapped. He rubbed the back of his neck, avoiding my eyes. "I made a mistake. A really big one. And it's caught up with me." My chest tightened. "What do you mean mistake? What are you talking about?" He finally looked at me then, and the fear in his expression was enough to make my knees weak. "I owe money, Jess. A lot of money. To the wrong people." For a moment, I just stood there, staring at him, not fully processing. "Money? What are you, Michael, what do you mean the wrong people?" His voice dropped lower. "I've been gambling. It started a couple years ago, just small bets. But it got out of control. And now," he trailed off, running a hand over his face. "Now they want their money. All of it. Today." The room spun. My ears rang. I had just walked across a stage celebrating years of discipline and sacrifice, and the first thing I came home to was the collapse of everything I thought I knew about my husband. I sank into the chair across from him, clutching my diploma so tightly the edges bent. "How much do you owe?" I whispered. He didn't answer right away. When he finally did, it was barely audible. 75,000. 75,000? I repeated, my voice cracking halfway through. I thought maybe I had misheard him, that maybe he meant 750 or 7,000, but no. He didn't correct me. He just stared at me with hollow eyes, waiting for the explosion. I couldn't even form words at first. My entire body went cold. "Michael, do you have any idea how much money that is? How could you let it get this far?" "I thought I could fix it," he muttered, his voice breaking. "Every time I lost, I thought I could win it back. Just one more game, one more weekend, one more hand. I swear I was going to stop, Jess, I swear." I shoved the diploma onto the table between us. I had been working my ass off for years to make our lives better, and while I was studying at night, raising our kids, you were out gambling away our future? Tears stung my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I was too furious, too betrayed. "And what do you mean they want it today? Who are they?" Michael swallowed hard. "Not banks. Not credit cards. Jess, it's guys I met through a friend. They're not patient. They're not the kind of people you can set up a payment plan with." That's when the fear really hit me. Not just fear of being broke, but fear of actual danger. "You mean criminals?" He didn't answer, which was answer enough. I leaned back in my chair, shaking my head. "So let me get this straight. While my family, our family, was at a barbecue celebrating absolutely nothing, I was graduating alone, and you were sitting here waiting for, what? For these people to show up at our door?" Michael slammed his hand on the table, startling me. "You think I wanted this? You think I planned it?" "Jess, I screwed up, but I'm trying to fix it." I laughed bitterly, the sound sharp and ugly. "Fix it? How, Michael? With 75 grand just lying around in your back pocket?" That's when he leaned forward, lowering his voice, and what he said next made my stomach churn. "I was hoping you'd help me. With your savings. With the money you've been putting aside." It was like a knife to the chest. My savings. The little account I had been building for years, for emergencies, for maybe a down payment on a better house, or for the kids' college. My safety net. And now my husband wanted me to hand it over to clean up his mess. The words hung in the air like a bad smell. My savings. I had started that account quietly, slipping in $50 here, $100 there whenever I could, sometimes skipping things I wanted just to grow it little by little. It wasn't a fortune, nothing close to $75,000, but it was mine. It was my proof to myself that I could be responsible, that I could plan ahead, that even in the chaos of raising 3 kids and working full-time, I could still build something for the future. And Michael wanted to drain it to pay off criminals. I sat there, staring at him, my throat tight. You're unbelievable. Do you even hear yourself right now? You're asking me to throw away years of sacrifice to clean up after you? It's not like that, he shot back quickly. This is life or death, Jess. These guys, if I don't pay them something, anything, I don't know what they'll do. They know where we live. They know about you. About the kids. That made my blood run cold. The kids. I pressed my hands to my temples, trying to think. How much do you owe them immediately? What do they expect today? 30, he said, eyes darting away from mine. If I can get them 30 grand by tonight, I can buy some time. They'll let me work out the rest. I nearly laughed in his face. 30,000? Michael, my entire savings doesn't even come close to that. You're asking for something I don't even have. His jaw tightened. How much do you have? I froze. That was a question I had never intended to answer out loud. He didn't even know about the account until just now. And I hated that he was forcing me into this corner, making me reveal something that had been mine alone. Enough to take care of the kids if something happened to me, I said finally, refusing to give him a number. He leaned across the table, his eyes pleading now instead of hard. Jess, please. I know I don't deserve this, but if you don't help me, I don't know what's going to happen. To me. To us. To the kids. Tears pricked my eyes, but I blinked them away. For years, I had been the steady one, the responsible one, the one holding the family together while he drifted in and out of jobs, while he made promises he couldn't keep. And now here he was, dragging me into his chaos again. I whispered, barely above a breath, I don't know if I can do this anymore, Michael. His face went pale. Do what? Us. The silence after I said it was unbearable. Michael just stared at me like he couldn't comprehend the words. His lips parted, but no sound came out, and for a second, I almost felt guilty. Almost. Jess, he finally managed, his voice breaking. You can't mean that. I leaned back in my chair, crossing my arms tightly over my chest, as if I could physically shield myself from him. I've spent years patching up the holes you keep tearing into this family. You think I don't remember the car payments you forgot to make? The time you drained our joint account without telling me? Or the promises, you'd do better, you'd get it under control, you'd make it up to me? I believed you. Over and over. And now this? 75,000 to criminals? His hands were trembling as he reached across the table, but I pulled mine back. I'm scared, Jess, he whispered. For the first time in my life, I'm terrified. They're not bluffing. If I don't get them something tonight, I don't know what they'll do. Please. I need you. I closed my eyes, the weight of his words pressing down like bricks. He was right about one thing, this wasn't just his problem anymore. If these people knew where we lived, if they knew about the kids, we were all in danger. And as much as I wanted to scream, to throw him out, I couldn't ignore that truth. But that didn't mean I was going to roll over and hand him everything I'd worked for. You don't need me, I said, opening my eyes and staring him down. You need help. Real help. From the police. From someone who can actually protect us. Not just me draining my savings so you can buy a little more time to dig us deeper. His face twisted. The police? Jess, no. That'll make it worse. These guys don't play by rules. If I involve cops, they'll retaliate. Then what do you expect me to do? My voice rose, shaking now. Just empty my account, hand you everything, and sit here waiting for them to come knocking again when you can't pay the rest?" He didn't answer. He just looked at me like a man drowning, reaching for a rope that wasn't there. And in that moment, I realized something that cut me deeper than his gambling ever could. Michael wasn't just desperate. He was weak. And if I didn't make a choice soon, his weakness was going to drag me, and our children, under with him. I stood from the table, my chair scraping across the floor. I couldn't sit there any longer, not with Michael's pleading eyes on me. I needed space to think, to breathe, to figure out what the hell I was supposed to do. I walked into the living room and pulled the curtains open. The sun was setting, painting the street in a golden haze. For a brief second, it looked peaceful, our quiet neighborhood, kids riding bikes, a couple walking their dog. Normal. Ordinary. Safe. But then I noticed something that made my skin crawl. A black sedan was parked across the street, 2 houses down. I hadn't seen it before, and it wasn't one of the neighbors' cars. The windows were tinted so dark I couldn't see inside, but I felt it. Whoever was in there was watching. My heart started racing. I turned back toward Michael, who was now pacing the kitchen like a trapped animal. "Michael," I called, my voice sharp. He froze and looked at me. "Did you tell them where we live?" His silence said it all. "Oh my God," I whispered, pressing a hand to my mouth. "They're already here." He rushed to the window, peeking out through the blinds. "Shit," he muttered under his breath. "I didn't think they'd come this fast." I spun on him, fury and fear boiling together. "You brought them to our home? To our kids' home?" "I didn't bring them here," he snapped defensively. They just know. They always know." I felt like I couldn't breathe. The house, my safe place, suddenly felt like a trap. The kids were still at my brother's barbecue, thankfully, but the thought of them walking into this mess made me want to scream. "Jess," Michael said, his voice low and desperate. "You see now why I need your help? If I can give them something tonight, they'll back off. They'll let us breathe." I turned back toward the window. The car was still there. Waiting. Watching. And in that moment, I realized my graduation wasn't the beginning of a new chapter like I had dreamed. It was the last taste of normalcy before everything in my life unraveled. The next few minutes felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, the ground crumbling beneath me. Michael kept pacing, running his hands through his hair, muttering to himself, while I stayed frozen at the window, staring at that car. Then, as if the tension wasn't already unbearable, the passenger side door opened. A man stepped out. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a black jacket despite the warm evening. He didn't walk toward the house right away, he just leaned against the car, lighting a cigarette. The gesture was casual, almost lazy, but it felt like a threat. "They're here for the money, aren't they?" I asked quietly. Michael didn't answer. He didn't need to. I turned to him, my voice sharp and trembling. "If they knock on this door, Michael, what do you think happens next? Do you think they're going to sit at this table and have a polite conversation? Do you think they'll just take what we give them and leave us alone?" He shook his head, panic etched across his face. "That's why I called you. I can't face them alone. If I don't give them something, they'll make an example out of me. Out of us." I thought of the kids, of their backpacks by the door, their drawings taped to the fridge, the way my youngest still slept with a nightlight. The idea of men like that stepping foot inside this house made my stomach twist. "We're not staying here," I said suddenly, my voice firmer than I expected. "I'm not letting them come inside. I'm not letting the kids walk into this tomorrow. We're leaving." Michael's eyes went wide. "What?" "Jess, no, we can't just run. That'll make it worse." "Worse than this?" I shot back, pointing toward the window. "They're already here. You think I'm going to sit here and wait for them to knock?" Before he could argue, there was a sharp, deliberate knock at the door. 3 heavy raps that echoed through the house. Michael went pale. My heart slammed against my ribs so hard I thought I might faint. The man's voice carried through the wood, deep and calm, with just enough edge to freeze my blood. Michael. We know you're in there. Time to talk. The knock still echoed in my ears as I stood frozen in the living room. My first instinct was to grab my keys, run out the back door, and get in the car. But Michael's shoulders slumped as if the weight of the world had finally landed on him. They're not going away, he whispered. Don't open that door, I hissed. But it was too late. Another round of knocks, louder this time, rattled the frame. Michael rubbed his face with both hands, muttering, if I don't talk to them, it'll get worse. If I don't show my face, they'll come inside anyway. I grabbed his arm. Do you even hear yourself? You're about to invite strangers, criminals, into our house. Where our children live. Think for once, Michael. His eyes darted to mine, red and desperate. Jess, please. Let me handle this. Before I could stop him, he walked toward the door. My chest tightened like a vice as he turned the lock and cracked it open. Two men stood on the porch. The one I'd seen from the window was tall and broad, the cigarette still hanging loosely from his lips. The other was leaner, sharper, with eyes that flicked over the inside of our house like he was cataloging everything. Michael stepped outside quickly, pulling the door nearly shut behind him, but I stayed close, listening. Gentlemen, Michael said, his voice shaky but trying to sound steady. I told you I'm working on it. The tall one exhaled smoke and smirked. Working on it doesn't pay the bill, Mike. The leaner man leaned forward slightly, his tone more direct. You've had weeks. You know the rules. We don't wait forever. My stomach churned. Rules. Weeks. This wasn't some one-time slip-up. Michael had been lying about this for a long time. I just need more time, Michael said quickly. I've got some money coming. The taller man cut him off with a low chuckle. We don't take coming. We take cash. Then his eyes slid past Michael, meeting mine through the narrow crack in the doorway. He smiled. Slow. Cold. Evening, ma'am. My blood went ice cold. That smile, it wasn't friendly. It wasn't even mocking. It was the kind of smile that said I know exactly how much power I have over you. Instinctively, I pushed the door shut tighter, but the tall man stepped closer, planting his hand on the frame before it could close. Michael shot me a panicked look, whispering, Jess, it's okay, just stay calm. The leaner man's eyes darted between us, then settled back on Michael. You said you had something for us. Let's see it. Michael swallowed hard. I don't have it yet, but I can get it. Tonight. I just need. The tall one cut him off, leaning in until his face was inches from Michael's. You've been saying that for too long, Mike. Tonight isn't good enough anymore. My heart was pounding so loudly I thought they'd hear it. I stepped forward before I could stop myself. How much? Both men looked at me then, sizing me up. Michael spun around, his voice sharp with panic. Jess, don't. But I held my ground. You want money? Fine. How much will it take right now to get you off my porch and away from my family? The tall one's grin widened. Smart woman. He glanced at the leaner man, who tilted his head, considering. 30, the lean one said simply. Cash. By midnight. That buys you a week. No excuses. Michael's shoulders slumped. He looked like he was going to be sick. I forced my voice not to shake. And if we don't? The tall man flicked his cigarette into our flower bed, the ember hissing out in the mulch. Then he leaned in closer, lowering his voice. Then you find out what happens when people waste our time. The silence that followed was suffocating. Finally, the two men stepped back, walking toward their car. The taller one called over his shoulder, midnight. Don't disappoint us. When the sedan pulled away, the street felt emptier than ever. But the pit in my stomach only grew deeper. Michael closed the door and turned to me, his face pale. "Jess, what are we going to do?" I stared at him, my hands trembling, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I knew I had to take control. Because if I left it up to him, we'd all sink. The second the door clicked shut, I turned on Michael. "What are we going to do?" My voice shook, but it wasn't from fear anymore. It was rage. "No, Michael. What you're going to do is face the mess you made. What I'm going to do is make sure our kids don't get dragged down with you." He looked at me like I had just slapped him. "Jess, don't talk like that, this is our family, we're supposed to." "Our family?" I snapped, cutting him off. "Where was that family when you were sneaking off to gamble away $75,000? Where was that family when you let criminals know where we live? Don't you dare say family now." For once, he had no response. He just stood there, shoulders slumped, eyes downcast, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. I didn't waste time. I grabbed my phone and my purse from the counter. "I'm going to get the kids." Michael rushed forward. "Wait, what are you doing? What does it look like?" I snapped. "I'm not letting our kids sleep one more night in this house while you're waiting for gangsters to bang down our door." His hand hovered in the air, like he wanted to stop me, but he didn't. "Jess, please. Don't take them away from me." I froze just long enough to look him dead in the eye. "You already did that yourself." The words hung heavy between us, but I couldn't afford to soften. "Not now." I walked out to the car, my hands still shaking, and drove straight to my brother Mark's house. The same house where everyone had been celebrating with barbecue while I walked across the graduation stage alone. The irony wasn't lost on me, but right now, I needed my kids safe more than I needed pride. As I pulled up to the curb, I could see them in the backyard, laughing, running around with sparklers as the sun disappeared behind the trees. For a moment, my chest ached with relief. They didn't know. They had no idea what was waiting back at home. And I vowed then and there, I wasn't going to let them find out. But I also knew something else. If I told Mark the truth, if I told him about Michael's gambling, about the threats, about the men who now had their eyes on us, he'd never let it go. My parents would find out. The whole family would know. And Michael's shame would become my shame, too. So I pasted on a smile, walked into the backyard, and hugged my kids tight, all while my mind raced with a question I didn't yet have the answer to. What the hell was I going to do by midnight? The kids clung to me when they saw me, their little arms wrapping around my waist. For a few precious moments, I let myself breathe them in, the smell of sunscreen, barbecue smoke, and grass. They were safe, blissfully unaware, and I wanted to keep it that way. Mark walked over with a beer in his hand, his face flushed from the grill and the evening heat. "Hey! There's the college grad," he boomed, throwing an arm around me. "I was starting to wonder if you'd show up." I forced a smile. "Yeah, it's been a day." If he noticed the strain in my voice, he didn't say anything. But I could feel his eyes linger on me a little too long, like he was trying to read what I wasn't saying. I sat at the picnic table, watching my kids run across the yard, and my mind spun in circles. Midnight. 30,000. I had maybe 8 in my savings account, 10, if I drained every last cent from our checking. Even if I emptied everything, it wouldn't be enough. And then what? Beg my brother? Beg my parents? Even if they had the money, and they didn't, they'd demand answers I couldn't give without unraveling my entire life. The truth pressed down on me, cold and suffocating. I couldn't save Michael. Not this time. I pulled my phone from my purse and stared at the screen. The numbers blurred as my mind raced between two impossible choices. Call the police, and risk retaliation. Or try to scrape something together and hand it over, knowing it would only buy us a week before they came back for more. Neither option felt like survival. As I sat there, staring blankly at my phone, a text lit up the screen. It was from Michael. "Jess. Where are you? We need to talk before midnight. I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles ached. For years, "we need to talk" had always been the start of some new excuse, some new plea for me to fix what he'd broken. But this time, I felt something shift inside me. Maybe I couldn't save him. But I could still save myself. And I could save my kids. The only question was, how far was I willing to go? I sat at that picnic table for nearly 20 minutes, pretending to sip on a soda while my kids played, all the while my heart hammered like a ticking clock counting down to midnight. Michael's text glowed on my phone screen. "We need to talk before midnight." No. Not we. This was his storm, not mine. But if I didn't act, the storm would reach me and the kids too. I slipped away from the laughter and chatter, walking toward the side of the house where it was quiet. My hands shook as I dialed a number I hadn't thought I'd ever call. 911, what's your emergency? The words caught in my throat. My entire life, I'd been taught not to air family business outside the family. My parents drilled that into us growing up: what happens in this house stays in this house. But this wasn't spilled milk or a late bill. This was men on my porch, demanding $30,000 by midnight. "My name is Jessica Miller," I said finally, my voice low and firm. "My husband owes money to dangerous people, and they showed up at our house tonight. They threatened us. I need protection for me and my children." The dispatcher asked for details, and I gave them everything: what they looked like, the car, what they said. My voice cracked once when I mentioned the kids, but I kept it together. By the time I hung up, I felt lighter and heavier all at once. Lighter because someone finally knew. Heavier because there was no turning back. I texted Michael next. I called the police. "Don't come near me or the kids tonight. Stay at the house if you want, but it's over, Michael." The 3 dots popped up right away, but I didn't wait to see his reply. I blocked his number. When I walked back into the yard, my kids ran to me, begging for sparklers. I smiled, an exhausted, shaky smile, but it was real. For the first time in years, I felt like I wasn't just reacting to Michael's chaos. I was choosing something for us. The clock was still ticking toward midnight, but at least now, I wasn't waiting in silence. Midnight came faster than I expected. I was still at Mark's house, tucked in the guest room with my kids sleeping around me, when my phone buzzed with an unknown number. For a moment, I almost ignored it. But something in my gut told me I had to answer. I slipped into the hallway and whispered, "Hello?" There was nothing at first but heavy breathing. Then Michael's voice, low and broken, "Jess, they're here." My heart lurched. I pressed the phone tighter to my ear. "Michael, the police are on their way. Stay calm. Don't open the door. They're already inside," he cut me off, his voice trembling. They didn't wait. They broke the lock. I covered my mouth to muffle a gasp. My legs felt like they were giving out beneath me. I heard muffled voices in the background, low, commanding, terrifying. Then a sharp crash, like something breaking. Michael cried out. "They're serious this time, Jess," he whispered hoarsely. "They want the money," and when I told them I didn't have it, his words dissolved into a sob. "Michael, listen to me," I said quickly. "The police are coming. Just hold on, stay alive until they get there. Do you hear me? Just hold on." But the phone was yanked from his hand. A new voice came through the line, calm and cold. "Mrs. Miller." My blood turned to ice. "You made a mistake," the man continued. "Bringing cops into this. Your husband should have told you, we don't like cops." I couldn't breathe. My voice came out shaky, but I forced the words. "If you hurt him, you'll go to prison for the rest of your life." The man chuckled, low and humorless. "You think prison scares people like us?" Then there was a loud thud on the other end. Michael's cry, sharp and pained. The line went dead. I stood frozen in the dark hallway, clutching the phone, every muscle in my body trembling. And all I could think was, had I just signed my husband's death warrant? I didn't sleep that night. I sat upright in the guest room with the kids curled around me, listening to every little noise outside, waiting for the phone to ring again. It wasn't until nearly 3 in the morning that I finally got a call, not from Michael, but from the police. "Mrs. Miller," the officer said, his tone steady but heavy, "we responded to a call at your residence. Your husband was found inside. He's alive, but badly beaten. He's being transported to St. Vincent's Hospital." Alive. Relief flooded me, but it was tangled with something else: anger, exhaustion, an emptiness I couldn't even name. When I asked about the men, the officer said they were gone by the time units arrived. No arrests. Just a wrecked house, blood on the floor, and Michael barely conscious. By sunrise, I sat in a hospital room watching Michael hooked up to IVs, his face swollen and bruised, his jaw wired shut. He couldn't talk, but his eyes, filled with shame, regret, and something close to fear, followed me every time I moved. For years, I had carried his mistakes like they were mine. I had patched the holes, lied to family, covered the bills, and hoped he would finally change. But looking at him there, broken in a hospital bed, I knew the truth: I couldn't carry him anymore. When the nurse asked about paperwork, emergency contacts, insurance, financial responsibility, I handed her the forms and signed what was necessary for him to get care. But when she asked if I wanted to list myself as his primary contact, I hesitated. Finally, I shook my head. No. That's not me anymore. Later that day, I packed the kids' things from Mark's house and told them we were staying there for a while. They didn't ask too many questions, and I was grateful for that. As I watched them play in the yard, their laughter floating up through the window, I felt something I hadn't in years: control. Michael would have to face his demons alone now. Maybe he'd survive, maybe he wouldn't. But I had survived him. And for the first time in a long time, I knew exactly what my future looked like: a life without secrets, without debt collectors at the door, without fear. A life where the only thing I had to fight for was myself and my children. And that, I decided, was enough.